Hello, lovely people of the internet. Brian here from NintendoEverything.com, joined by John, and we're going to focus on just one topic this week.
Yeah, it's quite a big topic that kind of took the industry by storm this week, kind of turned everything on its head with the passing of Satoru Iwata.
Right, right. I'm sure everyone knows, but of course, that was Nintendo's president, former president now. And yeah, we just wanted to have this just a chat dedicated to Iwata and just kind of talk about things. Usually I kind of have like a set kind of schedule and stuff I want to talk about, but this week we're kind of doing things a little bit different because obviously it was just huge news and just going to talk about the whole situation and I guess Iwata in general.
Yeah, I mean, with the gaming industry being as young as it is, I mean, we really haven't seen, a tragedy like this kind of pop up on the scale that it has. And it just really, it turned the entire industry into like an extent the world kind of on its head. And there was outcry, everywhere from all sorts of different places, whether it be like Microsoft, Nintendo, or all sorts of different developers, sort of pouring out support for the last 13 years he's been at the helm of Nintendo, and even before that with his work at HAL. I mean, Iwata really contributed like so much to this industry, and yeah, it really was an untimely passing.
Yeah, you were kind of talking about how a lot of different people have been kind of sharing nice thoughts and, just acting kindly and remembering Iwata nicely, but, we've also seen stuff where people in Nintendo world have kind of been able to sign this book and leave nice things for him as well. And yeah, just everyone's been pretty good about the situation at least.
Yeah, and I mean, like hindsight is 2020, but I mean, the last couple of years, he has sort of taken a backseat, at least in terms of, in comparison to how he's been previously. I mean, he's still been doing the directs and whatnot, but like certainly his presence at E3 in the last couple of years, the absence was definitely noticed. Um, with like we obviously, the public face from Nintendo would have been that he was on the up and up, but it obviously wasn't the case. Um, and
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, like going back to, I think it was like around right before last year's E3, we did know that Iwata had a problem, which was this bile duct growth thing. Uh, yeah, a lot of people have been like calling it cancer, so I guess we'll just say it was that basically. But yeah, we knew about this for around a year, and I think everyone kind of thought he was doing better, even though he looked a lot skinnier than he used to. And I mean, in recent months, he didn't look entirely healthy, but we didn't have any sort of impression that anything was really that bad.
right. And like the PR that Nintendo kept pushing out was, oh, like it's everything's sort of on the up and up. Just really trying to keep that face to kind of keep confidence in the brand, I guess. With all sorts of the other drama that was happening around the Wii U and the sales numbers and all sorts of other pressures. The last thing they probably needed was to add that sort of into the mix.
Yeah, and then for this year's E3, we kind of heard, I think it was from Iwata himself, explaining why he wasn't going to go, and that was because I think Nintendo had a shareholders meeting just a few weeks after E3 or something like that. So, yeah, there was never really any kind of indication that this was anything serious, given that they said it was being treated last year. So, just
Yeah,
very much a surprise.
E3 was definitely it was definitely hard to gauge that from E3 because Nintendo have said multiple times, how they sort of feel about E3 and how it's just one event for them in sort of the year's calendar, and with the directs they kind of do things on their own schedule now. So, yeah, I mean there was no way to kind of tell coming out of this year's E3, but hindsight is 2020, and kind of looking back on it, all the pieces sort of line up a little bit more.
Right. And then just kind of going back to when the news actually broke, it was like late Sunday night here, and I just happened to come across Nintendo's IR page. At the time, they hadn't even like said anything on their Japanese Twitter account, so I'm just, I think I was one of the first people to like notice that this was happening, and I can't even begin to tell you how shocked I was when I read this because it was just this casual announcement on Nintendo's website, and again, I hadn't seen anyone else really report on this or talk about it, so I just was so stunned when I saw that he had passed. Even now, it's been a few days later, and I could just still barely believe it.
Yeah, I mean, certainly in the time that I've kind of been keeping up. I mean, I've been playing Nintendo games my whole life, but in the time I've sort of been paying a closer attention to the industry. Iwata's been at the helm since 2002, and like I'm 22, so I honestly like cannot imagine a Nintendo without him at the helm. Just every sort of big generation we've had in the last 10 years. With the DS and certainly with the Wii, that's kind of all from him. And to just kind of sit back and picture a Nintendo without him is just it's hard. It's where like what happens from here.
It's actually funny that you mentioned that because I was having similar thoughts. I had a Game Boy Color, and so I've been gaming for a long time, but when I really started getting serious about gaming was with the GameCube. I was a late adapter for that system, so basically my entire serious gaming life has been with Iwata, and everything from the DS to the Wii U, and 3DS. I mean, that's really when I've been taking gaming seriously. So it's just really tough to imagine Nintendo without him.
Yeah, and
And I mean,
even his work outside of the CEO position, like going back to his HAL days. I mean, even though we weren't necessarily, I mean, you may have been playing the games during that time, but like his reach is certainly far-reaching from those days as well.
yeah, I think that's kind of what made him a really good CEO for Nintendo and president, of course, in a way, because he did have that really good and knowledgeable, extensive background in making games. So it's going to be really tough to find someone else who's kind of had that same kind of role.
For sure.
But yeah, what would you say like your feelings about this in general are? Like, I've been taking it like kind of hard, honestly. It's kind of weird saying that just because you wouldn't really associate those sorts of feelings with someone that you never really knew personally, but just I've honestly been really sad about the whole situation like many people. Just crazy to think about just
Yeah,
now.
I'm right there with you. I mean, Iwata was definitely one of those like one of the people at the forefront when it came to he was in that executive position, but he made himself so relatable through things like the Iwata Asks column, the Nintendo Directs. He definitely made an effort to communicate with us, the fans, and like it's honestly no surprise that we have these feelings towards him because he wasn't just a suit. There was that beautiful quote going around from GDC 2005. On my business card, I'm a corporate president. In my mind, I'm a game developer, but in my heart, I'm a gamer. And I think that's kind of what made him so easily relatable, and like why so many people feel so strongly, about him and the work he's done.
Yeah, and he kind of like had offbeat humor in a way. He was like willing to poke fun at himself in Nintendo Directs, and of course, just speaking about Nintendo Directs in general, that was just a really big thing. Iwata just kind of speaking directly to fans, and he took it upon himself to deliver a lot of the news himself. So that was really big.
Yeah, and I think that like certainly a lot of other companies have since adopted that trend. People like Shuhei Yoshida are definitely popular among the PlayStation audience. But I think Iwata was definitely one of, if not the first, to kind of pioneer that and try and build a personal relationship with the fan base.
Yeah, definitely. And I also really loved those Iwata Ass interviews. Those were just like the best. And, again, his developer background really helped him in that. So he had the CEO kind of knowledge side, and then he had his game development background. So, man, I'm going to really miss a lot of things about him.
So yeah, me too.
But yeah, I don't even know like where Nintendo goes from here. Obviously, we know that Miyamoto and forget the other guy's name right now. It's just escaping me.
Takeda?
But yeah, that's it. So both of them are kind of taking over things for now. But obviously, we don't know who's going to be the president at this time.
Yeah, for me, I'm not really too fussed on like if we were to just narrow it down to a specific person, but I really hope that whoever does take over kind of embodies a lot of what Iwata kind of represented when it came to things like having that developer background. He really cared about the IPs. He really cared about the franchises and everything sort of Nintendo had before him, and kind of like I really hope that it's not just to kind of keep the profits up. I mean, my mind automatically just sort of jumps to what's happening with DNA in the mobile space. And Iwata was so like committed to we're not just gonna shovel Mario onto a smartphone, and whoever does helm is like I really hope they're not too afraid to take criticisms, and really like have a clear creative vision that even like because Iwata he'd face criticisms like all the time, but he's sort of stuck to his guns, and whoever does replace him, I hope they really sort of keep that line of thinking.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people have thrown around Miyamoto as a potential president, but I just don't see that happening. A, because he's kind of mentioned that he wouldn't really want to be in that sort of position in the past. And I think at this point he's thinking more about retirement than becoming the president.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense now, kind of, given the circumstances. But long term, no, I don't, I can't see it happening. But where they go next to, who is that's anybody's guess.
Yeah, I really don't know, but Nintendo has this first quarter's earnings release coming up, I think, later this month. So I'm guessing Miyamoto and who's the guy again? I don't know. I keep
Takeda,
forgetting. Yes. Yeah. So I'm sure both of them are going to be leading the proceedings on that.
right?
And it's kind of crazy to think that I believe it was on June 29th when Nintendo had that annual shareholders meeting or something like that. Actually, no, it was June 26th. So, yeah, that was only a few weeks ago, and Iwata was there for that. So he was pretty much working until the very last days, which is a little bit sad in a way.
Yeah. Sorry, just as a quick aside, the person helming Nintendo at the moment with Miyamoto is Genyo Takeda, and he was the one of the lead developers on the Wii, and he's Nintendo's general manager of integrated research. So there you go. That's kind of his role in Nintendo at the moment. So that yeah, it makes sense that he's kind of up there with Miyamoto at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to take over as president, but I've heard a few different names mentioned, but obviously right now we don't really know what's going to happen.
Mm.
I think a lot of people are still in that mourning phase a little bit. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe there was some sort of wake for Iwata actually just yesterday in Japan, so yeah.
What are your favorite moments? I mean, there's definitely been a lot of stories about Iwata and like moments that people have shared to come out of his last, however many years in development. Have any of them sort of caught your eye?
Someone actually asked me about this, and I don't think I could choose just one thing because there were just so many good memories of Iwata. I brought up the Nintendo Directs. Obviously, those are really great because, it was just great having news delivered directly by him. But also, you got those funny moments like with Iwata holding the bananas. So, there was that. And again, I loved the Iwata Ass interviews that he did. And of course, he had his game developer speech, which was really nice to listen to as well. And even just that Game Center CX kind of episode he did. I don't know if you've seen that, but that's another really nice thing. So there's a lot of good memories of him for sure.
The one that stood out to me most was actually back from his programming days. I'm not sure where I read it. I've seen it around in a few places, but they were talking about the second generation of Pokemon games, Pokemon Gold and Silver, and how they were having memory issues kind of with the getting all the programming to kind of fit on the cart in order to get it shipped. And Iwata came in, and not only was he able to get what they had already done to fit on the cart, but he freed up so much room that they were able to add the whole Kanto region, the whole world from the first generation onto the cart as well. And I think that's kind of mind blowing to just think about how much extra content that is.
Yeah, he was a fantastic programmer. I think I read something about how, like, in his early days, he was programming games on a calculator. I think he had programmed a baseball game just with numbers back in his day.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. When you kind of look at all the different IPs he's got to his name, going back as early as Balloon Fight, like to things such as Earthbound, the Kirby series, as we said, Pokemon Gold and Silver. Oh, and on the topic of Pokemon games, I believe that he actually reverse engineered the entire battle system in order to make it work for Pokemon Stadium on the N64, which is like mind-boggling. He reworked the entire coding from the original Japanese release, Pokemon Red and Green, so that they had the battle system ready to go to reprogram for the N64 title.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. We also had a story up, I think it was a few months ago, where there was talk about how he helped get Smash Brothers Melee out on time.
Yeah, and then to think about what that game means today and what that series is today, as he's just had his like finger in so many different pies and just so many like monumental releases have had sort of some sort of influence from him.
Right. And, even though the Wii U wasn't the best console Nintendo put out, you can't really say that he didn't really try risks. Obviously, there was the Wii and the DS, and even the Wii U was a risk in a way, so.
And even with the Wii U, with all the pressure he sort of faced with that, he stuck to his guns in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously Nintendo is going to mobile, but it's not in the way that a lot of people anticipated. And just the like intellectual integrity he had with all his decisions, I think was so admirable. Like because there was so many criticisms with him being the first CEO like not related to the Yamauchi family by blood or marriage. Like there was just so much pressure sort of piled on him. And even in the wake of that, the misstep with the Wii U. I mean, not every decision obviously was a winner, but he stuck to his guns in like a lot of ways, which I think speaks to kind of the passion with his like decisions and his creative, yeah, with his creative output.
Right, and you kind of brought up the mobile stuff. His impact is going to be felt at Nintendo for years to come because obviously there's the mobile stuff. We know NX is coming. He kind of set things up with character licensing and IP licensing because we know the Universal Studios stuff that's coming up, and just Nintendo has a lot of stuff coming up, and probably even things we don't even know about. There's also quality of life, which I think is still coming, even though we haven't heard about it as of late. So yeah, going forward, even though Iwata isn't here with us now, we're going to be feeling his impact for a long time.
Yeah, I mean his impact on the industry has just been kind of almost unrivaled, and I mean, yeah, as you said, like in the years to come, like his impact is going to be remembered and is going to be remembered fondly just for all the amazing things he brought to the industry and into the lives of so many millions of gamers.
Yeah, but I think we've pretty much exhausted things in terms of we can talk about. But a lot of us has really good memories of Iwata. It's been a sad week for a lot of people, including myself. So we just have to get through it, remember the good times, and just try and keep on going.
Hmm, for sure.
So yeah. Do you have any last words about Iwata for now?
Well, I mean, my heart goes out to everyone in his family, everyone at Nintendo who was affected by this, and yeah, I mean, it was such an untimely loss, but his impact on the industry will be celebrated for years and years to come, and yeah, I think like it's a cliche that's been going around a long time, but really all we can do is kind of you know play a game in his honor this week to just kind of remember the good times, just really to kind of embody what he tried to output with all of his games.
All right. We're actually going to be setting up a Let's Talk topic on the site for this coming weekend, so people can kind of share their favorite memories and just talk about Iwata in general on the website. And of course, if people want, they can tell us how they feel about Iwata in the comments as well.
That sounds great. I'll definitely be in there too.
All right. So yeah, I think we're going to wrap things up. Again, everyone try to hang in there, and I'll talk to you next time.
Yep. Thanks, Brian.
See you guys.